Hello, welcome to my object-oriented programming tutorial series. So at this stage, our form is just submitting and echoing back whatever the value user input back to us. Okay. So now we need to go to our code and implement a module view controller framework here. So what module view controller framework means, right? You see this HTML code, this I refers to as your views. And now this PHP code that will process this form element for this login form is the model for that login page or login form. Okay, so that's the model, and now that's your view. And we have created a view class that will go and render all our views for us. Now we need to create a class that will render the model for us as well. Okay, so before we do that, let's detach this code and implement it and save it in a different file. Okay, so we cut that out, open up a new file, choose your language, and then save it right there. This one doesn't need a PHP type because it's an HTML element, you see. So all your HTML documents are referred to as your views. And you could call it a user interface, you know, what the user will see when they visit your web page. So save that in the views folder and as a separate folder as well in that views folder. So call that folder login to represent that login page, and then save it as index page, index.php. So likewise, all other pages you will create will be referenced the same way. Folder name as the page name, and inside that folder is the index.php as a file name. So you will reference any page by their folder name. So that will be easy for when we are using it in our code. Okay, so now you've done that. So all we have to do likewise to bring that in, you use the same object you've created, right? So likewise, you know it's in a login folder and it's called index. So with one line of code, this that function will run and load our page for us. So now we've got that out of the way, we need to create a class called login underscore model with capital underscore. That's the class name. The reason why I'm giving it such a name is so that we can differentiate that between the controller class. Because in model view controller, so you got your view for the, and then you got your model. So you need to create a controller that will be able to go and call the method in the view class and the method in the model class. And the method in the view class will render the page view, and the method in the model class will load that model for that corresponding page view. So that's all. So your controller is loading your pages for you. Okay, so we've not to implement that class, what I have to do, put your curly brackets, push, separate that, between that curly bracket goes your function. For now, let's call that function name process form. Your bracket goes first, then followed by your curly bracket. That's your function block. Inside there now, any code else you want to implement can be inside that function, and that will run the same way. Likewise, so all this code, so in object-oriented programming, it's the same line of code you have written, you are wrapping up in a function. When you call that function, the code in that function block will run the same way as though you have written it line by line without enclosing it in a function. So, you know, you're not having extra effort programming in object-oriented programming. It's just the same code you know how to write. Just wrap it in a function, give it a class name, create a class object, and use the object to call that method. So now what's left now is to create instance of this class. So likewise, what you can do now, you come up here at the end of this class and put another class there. So you call this model class, and you call the view class. So now you can create an object of that model class and call it new, then followed by the class name. You can end your statement right there. You call a model for that class. Object for that class. This is called class instance or class object, hence object-oriented programming. So this variable here are your objects because they are instance of a class name. They represent that class. With that object, you can invoke any method implemented in that class. Simple. So here is where you want to implement that method. You can use this object. With this notation, go dash greater than sign, followed by the method in the class you want to invoke, which is process form. Method or function, they are the same thing, okay? Process form, go right there, and you can end your statement. So basically, we've done the same thing. Now, what you want to do is to create a controller class. Likewise, put your curly brackets to denote end of that class name. And then you also need to create another class for that login that will load the login view. Now let this class extend this. Now you are trying to do inheritance in object-oriented programming. When a class extends another class, you can use instance of that class to call method implemented in that class. Okay, so what we're trying to do now in object-oriented programming is let us in MVC or model view controller is let this controller class implement these two functions for us. First, we create instance of the view class and create instance of the model class. Any class that extends from it or inherited from it can use instance of that class name to invoke those methods from the parent class. Okay, that's object-oriented programming. So at this stage, I will end this video and implement that method in the next video. So what we have to do now is to complete this controller class to load our model, and then we modify that model function to be able to load any other model, not just login model. Okay. All right. See you. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.